Yes, we're recording. Welcome to our show. I'm Chris.
I'm James.
I'm Matt.
We are the three amigos.
My little buttercup.
Yeah. Or again, he goes.
Yep.
All right. Well, we got a lot to talk about. We should start recording the pre-show. I think the pre-show of this show is getting really good.
The warm up.
Throw it in as the after.
That's right. We should do that. We'll. I've been watching more of the behavior panel. I think I mentioned that. Those guys are so good. They just decipher people's body language and they can tell when people are lying and everything. It's so cool.
How the hell do they do that? Are they all biologists? Goodness.
Well, they're all interrogators, and they resistance to interrogation training, stuff like that.
Can they tell when Biden's filling his diaper?
I think
we're already demonetized.
Oh yeah, no. Well,
we're not on those platforms.
Well, we are on YouTube, but
Okay.
we're sending everyone to Odyssey. So Odyssey is going to be our home now. We're also on Rumble. But we don't care about YouTube. The only reason we're using YouTube is to get everyone on YouTube to go to the other platforms.
Exactly.
Just like Salty. And I can't believe he's still on YouTube. I mean, do you watch Salty's videos? That guy literally shreds everything woke. Even YouTube. He's telling Susan Wojcicki to, go F herself and all this stuff. Literally on YouTube. The guy's got 750,000 subscribers on YouTube. And he just puts out videos and nothing happens.
He doesn't care.
There's the dogs. Who let the dogs out? So, all right. Our first topic. Well, first of all, I want to ask you guys, what did you think of last week's episode? Because last week we covered one topic and we didn't talk about any news or politics or anything. How did you guys feel about that?
I thought it was a good episode.
Cool. Me too.
I think the dogs approve.
Yes.
But no, I enjoyed it because I enjoy not talking about that stuff because it's in your face all the time. Yeah, it's great.
Right? Yeah. Well, that was in the pre-show. So, all right. So what we're going to talk about is a little bit about, the topic we came up with was ancient civilizations and why is this important? So I think this is important and fascinating because, as I mentioned in a previous episode, I really can't stand when scientists pretend that they know everything and they know when life started and they know this and they know that. They don't know anything. So ancient civilizations, is a great topic because we know a lot happened. And of course, think about 1 million years ago. You don't know what was here 1 million years ago. No one does. So it's a very interesting topic. And I just finished a book called The Immortality Key, which was really cool. So I want to start with you, James, and Matt first, and I'll go third on this topic because I just finished the book and I'm going to explain it. It's really cool, really fascinating.
Well, I would try to weave in quantum physics again. And that I just think it's fascinating. So some of the books I'm reading they're not necessarily about ancient civilizations, but they're referencing gurus from thousands of years ago who were talking about the same thing, about the collective consciousness and the collective universe. And I just think it's fascinating, and being able to access the knowledge from these ancient civilizations, if we put some effort into it, I believe that's possible.
And by the way, everyone, those are James's dogs in the next room. So it's not going to be like that the whole time, is it, bro? Okay. Yeah. Because I'm just saying, look, I'm an audio guy. I produce podcasts for a living, and I know people they're literally they're going to turn it off. So they'll literally turn off the whole show because that's it. So, yeah, I know you're muted, but it just stinks that every time you're going to, if there's dogs every time you talk, that kind of stinks.
Yeah, they're quiet now.
Okay. So, yeah, and the thing is, we don't even, like you said, James, we don't even know, we know some things about the past, but not everything. Well, almost nothing.
No,
I mean-
literally nothing. We, look at us. Look at the state of the world right now. We've got some oligarchs trying to control everything and make everybody eat shit meat and bugs.
Bugs.
That's
Eat your
progress. Look at where we're at. I mean, we've gone nowhere. We've gone nowhere except backwards. Yeah, exactly. We're heading back into another age of totalitarian socialism, whatever the hell is going to whatever it's going to be, and we just went through this rigmarole back. We ended this in the 80s, and everybody knew it sucked, and here we are again. Doing the same damn thing again. Although it's not by our choice, it's the people in charge. So
Yeah. In charge.
In charge.
About to be out of charge, if you ask me. Once the people
Hopefully.
stand up. Yeah. So, Matt, what do you got on this topic?
Well, I listen a lot to Dan Carlin on his podcast, Hardcore History, which is fantastic. And he does. I was just listening. I listen to him on repeat because they're so good. You pick up new stuff all the time. But one I started listening to again. He's talking about the end of the Bronze Age, which was before like the whole Roman Empire and Greek Empire stuff. Way before that. This is back with the like the Assyrians and Babylon and such, and how it just. So these are all thriving civilizations that just disappeared, just gone, and no one has any idea why. And that's what's so neat about like the idea of ancient civilizations or past civilizations, because whatever it is, anything really in the past, is that it's so easy to not have any idea what happened in the slightest at all for any reason, because everything just gets literally worn away. Just the nature of the planet just recycles. Plates go sucked back down in and recycle back up, plate tectonics. So even if there were, let's say, skyscrapers 30, 50,000 years ago, they've been ground to dust or sucked back into the earth and they're gone. So you'd have no idea. And so, like you're saying, James, it's just you imagine that we're always just going to repeat the same cycle. Because there's the ability to learn, for instance, the ability to learn something from a book is because the book is there. So you can read it and learn something. But if the book was gone, you wouldn't necessarily be able to learn it. So whatever civilizations were in the past, whatever successes, technological advances, sociological advances, anything that happened in the past is, for the most part, wiped away. There's no way to permanently save it so that future people can say, oh, wow, this was cool. Look, they said don't develop these types of technologies because they will be the end of you. A good thing we didn't do that. We don't have that. So it's just a matter of you'll recycle back always to what you're seeing now or what has always been. And I imagine that speaks a lot more on just the fact that that's human nature. There's really nothing you could do about it. This is human nature. We're destined to be this way as a species, to want power and control. So it doesn't matter how advanced you get, you can't outgrow your human nature.
I just remembered a book I read like 2 years ago that's perfect for this topic. Jared Diamond's Collapse. Have you read that book?
No.
It's an awesome book. It goes into all the reasons they speculate, or his thesis on why all these different societies collapsed. Talks about the Vikings.
Does Dan Carlin mention him?
Probably, yes.
Because I remember that name.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great book. I listened to an audiobook. It was like 30 some odd hours, but it was really interesting reading. And all these societies, there's specific reasons why all these societies collapse. And I wish I could remember them all, but they're fantastic. They try to, like the Vikings when they went to Greenland, right? When they went to Greenland, they tried to bring all their European customs with them to this Nordic land, and like cattle, and it didn't work, and they died. They died, and you could see how they when all the cattle died because they couldn't live, they started, or maybe this is Iceland. Anyway, I know they're in both places, but you could see in the wealthier people, if you looked in their middens, their trash piles, they could see their diet changing as their European customs that like cattle raising just died off. It didn't work, so they had to change their diet, and there's specific reasons why all these societies, who went through several societies, why they all collapsed. And they all had the same similarities. They didn't realize, they didn't have the understanding that things were going south, and they needed to really make some radical changes because they have customs that they're used to doing for 100 years, hundreds of years, and they don't want to change them. Even if it means their death, they don't perceive that, hey, now it's a tipping point. We need to start going in a different direction or we're going to die. And they don't do that. And you can see that today.
Wow.
With so many different things happening in the world. But there's my media suggestion right there.
And it's I'm such
serious,
a great
that's
point.
a great book. That's a great book.
Yeah, because it comes down to ego, and like we talked about a little bit about spirituality. It's like we think we know better than our ancestors, and we think we're the pinnacle of humanity, especially us living right now. We're the most modern, knowledgeable, and like there's so much ego and hubris that we can't be wrong. We know everything, and it's like, no, this is why wisdom exists, because wisdom is what works over time in different places, different times, different scenarios, different hemispheres, right? And when we start ignoring the basic wisdom of life just is going to pound you. That's it.
Well, we'll see how smart we are here when the trucks stop showing up at Walmart with their just-in-time inventory system. What is it? 9 meals away from chaos. Mm-hmm. We'll see how smart we are when people don't have freaking food. So, because we relied on somebody else to do it for us. So,
yeah, it reminds me of Siddhartha, right? Didn't he learn how to fast, how to wait? What else did he do? I forget. Anyway, like literally just being able to fast and being able to just wait. That like those ended up for him being so helpful.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think everybody's going to learn how to fast here real soon. Sadly, funny and not funny.
Yeah, that's reality.
So Matt, you wrote that the Graham Hancock. I've seen him on Rogan, and I think I might have read one of his books a long time ago, and he was actually talking about Göbekli Tepe, which they talked about in the book that I'm going to talk about in a minute. But that guy Graham Hancock, he's so cool, and it's so shocking that kind of shocking that he apparently just smokes weed all day, every day. Like he just, I think, right? Didn't he say that?
Yeah, he seems to be pretty into hallucinogenic drugs, and he finds them to be very helpful in understanding things. I mean, whenever he goes on Rogan, like he's not a trained archaeologist or biologist, so he definitely can't identify a woman. So he's not really trained in any of these sort of activities, but he does tons and tons and tons and tons of research. But because he's not officially one of the guys, his ideas get shredded by all the pros, and so they just discount anything he has to say because they're like, you're a schmo. What do you know? You can go to school, and therefore you can't do any critical thinking on your own. Randall Carlson tends to stand up for him and say he's actually, extraordinarily, detailed and thorough in his investigations. But he talks about a lot of wonderful stuff, in the Amazon jungle. right? That's a hugely unexplored area. He doesn't talk about it, but when you think of areas like Antarctica or even potentially the Arctic, those are areas that were not always covered in snow. They were not always, a mile thick of ice on top. So they were at some points tropical and deciduous. So what's under there? I don't know. Nobody knows. There could be nothing. There could be a lot of something. So there's going back to your idea of we don't really know. Well, if the smart ones know that, they don't really know much. That's what smart people tend to realize. Like, I don't have any real answers. I have way more questions than answers. And the more you learn, the more you're like, oh my gosh, this is really deep. And I've read it. I watched, there's this, I don't know, I forget the name of this YouTube channel. It's like EXUB, I think. He's this really smart guy. He has these really, really incredibly smart, funny videos. But he says, we're like 3 feet down on a mile thick glacier, and we think we have all the answers. We're 3 feet down, and there's an entire mile underneath us, and we think, yeah, we're pretty hot stuff. We have this figured out. We know what's going on. And if you think of that analogy, you're like, you literally did nothing. You haven't even scraped the surface yet. There's so much more to know. And it's oftentimes foolhardy to think otherwise. But as you were saying earlier, James, that seems to be the issue with the repetitive nature of civilization's downfalls and self-destruction is you put people, you give people inordinate amount of power to make decisions for everybody else. And, the nature of being a human sort of guides them into decisions that benefit them or their desires as opposed to their technical job of doing what's best for the masses. And there's literally, I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, there's really no way to change that. I don't think. Dan Carlin, and again, in a great one of his great podcasts talking about nuclear weapons, he mentions after the first nuclear bombs are dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that different groups in America, think tanks, came together and said, hey, this is really bad. We could wipe out the whole planet, What can we do here? How do we handle the situations? And a bunch of groups had different ideas. And one group, their conclusion was that as a species, we need to adapt. We need to change. We need to be less violent, less power hungry, less ambitious, less jealous, the more things they listed, you're like, oh, so you're talking literally about a different species. It is impossible to remove the things that make humans. For all the good it does, it also tends to, like the dragon that eats its own tail or the snake that eats its own tail. There's really, I don't think there's a way to break that cycle. That's just my opinion. What do you guys think?
I love those ideas, and I think what you're getting at is like personal development and personal spirituality and personal character development. Like, I think as individuals, each of us has extreme power in terms of changing ourselves. Now, we all have habits. We all come in with samskara and karma, which we talked about too. So there are limitations to some degree, but in general, as individuals, we have so much power to change. And then if each individual changes, then that makes the whole society change. Like one of my teachers used to say, you don't feed a crowd of people. You have to feed each individual, right? Like you don't feed a crowd. So same thing with like developing our characters and overcoming all this ego and this, avarice and greed and power hungry, all that. Like that's an individual thing. But it seems now in the modern day that we're in this downward spiral of being helpless and not taking responsibility for ourselves and just expecting the government to fix it. And so we're just in a downward spiral. And that's how civilizations finally go extinct, because you're done, right? But the thing about a downward spiral, there's also an upward spiral. It just takes a lot more energy and effort to go that route. And right now, to me, the momentum of the earth right now, the momentum of people on the earth is in a downward spiral. So, not that we're going to be extinct in 5 years, but it's moving down. The momentum is slightly down. I don't want to be too dark and,
That's
depressing.
my job. I'm in the dark.
I think it's easy to be too dark and too doomsday. It's easy to be doomsday, but here's what I know about people. We all know this. Most human beings are really good people. Like 99, I swear to God, 99 point something percent of people on Earth are good people. And if something happened, like if a meteor crashed and we all had to scramble and help each other, we would help each other, right? I believe that. Do you guys believe that?
No.
Yeah, I do. I'd say about 10% of society is dirtbags, and the rest of us are decent folk. There's always going to be dirtbags. So,
Yeah.
but most of us out here want to do right, and unfortunately, we don't see that much with social media because the algorithms like to spin everybody up and get everybody angry at each other. But it's actually I found Diamond's book. I'll put that in the media section, and we can
Sweet.
link that later. I found it on freaking PDF for free. So
Nice.
it's 600 pages. But some of the things real quick. Why do some societies make disastrous decisions? Failure to anticipate, failure to perceive, just bad behavior, disastrous values, irrational failures, unsuccessful solutions. Every society that fails follows these same things. We don't anticipate. Some of us do, but as in general, we don't anticipate all the stupid things that we're doing right now where they're going to lead us. So, unfortunately.
Yep. Yeah, so much opportunity, but
yeah, but like what you were saying, it's positive change comes from the bottom up. It rarely ever occurs from the top down. Maybe even like Gandhi's march to the sea to harvest salt. That was kind of a grassroots thing because he just marched across the nation and gathered people as he went. He didn't have any power per se to cause change, but he did it from the bottom up. So we can do that. And our sphere of influence is only so big. We can just affect the people around us in our community and so forth, and that's enough. That's all we can worry about, and then let other people affect their communities.
Yeah. I always think that. I had a friend in high school who I forget what we were talking about, but he said something like, hey, if every person could just help one other person, think about that. That literally changes the entire world. So I think today, especially with the woke people and the activists and stuff, they think they have to change 1,000 people, 100,000 people. They have to change millions of people. And it's like, well, no, first of all, you can't, that's not possible. You can't do that. You can't do that. And second of all, that's not the organic grassroots correct way to do it. The correct way is to do it 1-to-1. Right? Just like you were saying.
No, well, they like to use the woke activists like to use the force of government to beat you over the head with their value system, right. And never going to work. Never going to work. Never. So
the book that I finished is called what is it called? It's called The Immortality Key, and of course we're going to link to everything in the show notes. All these books and resources, all the links are below. It's called The Immortality Key: The Secret History of the Religion with No Name. And it's all about, I'm just going to summarize it real quick, and I hope I do a better job than when I tried to summarize the 2-hole experiment. God, that was awful. That was absolutely
rubbish.
Brutal. Anyway, rubbish. Thank you. Yeah. So, The Immortality Key and the Religion with No Name. So this whole book is about investigating the use of psychedelics in not only early Christian times, but even before Christianity, which was the religion with no name. There was a religion in Greece. It didn't have a name, but they had things they did, and they'd have gatherings, and they'd have in the woods and different places. And then in Greece, there's a city called Eleusis, and every year for I think 2,000 years, they had a gathering, and whatever happened at Eleusis, no one was supposed to talk about it outside of Eleusis. Whatever happens in Eleusis stays in Eleusis, kind of thing. Because it was spiritual and it was revelatory. They would basically drink either spiked beer or spiked wine with hallucinogenic or psychedelics, really, and they would experience things together. And it was a really spiritual experience. And there were all these. I mean, there's got to be a list of at least 10 famous Greek philosophers like Aristotle and people like that. These people all said that Eleusis is the heart of Greek culture. Like, without Eleusis, Greek culture is nothing. And so that was what spirituality was before Christ. And then there was a thing that happened right around the birth of Christ and the life of Christ. And then after that, there was, Christianity started, obviously. But of course, for the first 300 years of Christianity, it was very small. It was kind of outlawed, and it had to be practiced in people's houses and different places. It wasn't out in the open. It wasn't an official religion or anything. But what happened was these early Christians used, and this is what the book says, all right? This is not what I'm saying. And by the way, I just want to say about Christianity, first of all, we were raised Christian, we were raised Catholic, and I have a lot of respect for the religion in many ways. And of course, I have less respect in other areas of the religion and all that. But I'm not against religion. I'm not against Christianity. I'm not against any of that stuff. So I just want everyone to know that. And of course, what I'm going to tell you here is what this guy's saying in his book. And, if you want to say it hasn't been proven, okay, fine, that's fine. So, but anyway, the early Christians who were practicing in their homes and stuff, away from the Roman, out of the sight of the Roman Empire, they were using for the Eucharist, they were literally using the wine with the psychedelics in it. That was their Eucharist. That's why the Eucharist was such a big deal. That's why it's the blood of Christ, the blood, and Christ, of course, is bigger than the one man. So this is the idea that religion with no name that was around for 2,500 years sort of morphed into Christianity in those first 300 years. And then once it became the official religion of the Roman Empire, then they started stamping out all the use of this, and they banned women, of course, and then the witch trials started. So all the women who were basically creating the Eucharist, the psychedelic wine, they were all again like held as a witch trial and burned at the stake and all this crap. So like the church actively tried to stamp out all of that.
What time frame was that? Are we talking about the
300 AD, 400 AD.
Oh, okay. I wasn't aware of those witch trials.
Oh, yeah. So what I'm saying is,
Okay.
Jesus was obviously like 0 AD, right?
Right.
So the first 300 years of of that millennia. So from the year 100 AD, 200 AD, 300 AD, those first 300 years, Christianity was like an underground thing, and it was sort of outlawed, and it wasn't, whatever. So around the 3rd century or 4th century AD is when, I forget who the Roman emperor was. He made it the official religion. And then, of course, that's when they started stamping out all the use of psychedelics and everything. So, okay. So to wrap up my little spiel here, because I want to know what you guys think about all this, is one thing I've always thought about religion especially when I was growing up, is that it was really it was empty. It was like people going through the motions, and I kind of get the philosophical angle. I get a lot of it, but like the real world part of it, like even when, we went to church and stuff, like, we all go to church and we bow our heads and we're trying to be all solemn and all this and that. And then we go home and then we're like killing each other and mom's screaming at us. What the, it's like, where did all that spirituality go? Now we're back to acting like animals. So and again, I know that's natural, but what I'm saying is, as a kid, I observed that incongruity, and I always knew there was something more to it. But anyhow, when I read this book with that psychedelics were involved, and there's proof of this too. They found traces of it all in different places in Europe, even in Göbekli Tepe from 10,000 or 12,000 years ago. They found literal evidence of like a psychedelic beer brew.
Cool.
That like they found that. So anyway, to me, it made a lot more sense. Once I found this out, I was like, of course, the psychedelics open you up, and you're open to things, and you see things from just a different level, and you sort of commune with God. And that's what the Eucharist is supposed to be, right? Holy Communion. But when they got rid of the psychedelic part of it, then the communion was just an empty, okay, take the wafer or drink the wine. It's like, what does it do? Well, it does, I don't know. Like, no one knows. So anyway.
Yeah. Well, what do the psychedelics do? They shut down the ego. They bring that wall down, so you're open. You don't have that filter to go through.
Right.
So yeah, that would be a spiritual event. But I grew up Episcopalian, which is like the redheaded stepchild of the Catholic Church. So yeah, all those bow here, genuflect over here, do this, do that at this time. That's all Jewish customs. That's all just carryovers from what the Jews did in their rigmarole. So that stuff for me is devoid of meaning. So I actually go to non-denominational now, but in the Catholic Episcopalian Church, I would say so too. They don't encourage you. At least they didn't. They don't encourage you to build that relationship with God, with Christ. They don't encourage you to do that. They want you to go through them, just like the old days. Just like the old days of Martin Luther. It's still kind of that way. You're relying on their interpretation, and who's to say it's right? So at least for what it's worth, non-denominational, they encourage you to study and figure out things for yourself, and see what you interpret it as. And you can ask your pastor and so forth, but it is open. It is open to interpretation for sure. It's not lock stock.
Right. So Matt, you're not a big church goer, are you?
The last church I walked in burned down, and then
right after you walked in, or
yeah, I walked in. The holy water boiled, and the walls caught fire. So I said, "Hang on, I'll go away."
And you walked by a mirror, and you didn't see yourself.
It shattered to 1,000 pieces. It was pretty impressive. I was like, wow, it's all right. Yeah, no, I haven't been to a church in quite some time. I actually liked church. It's very relaxing. It's when you go and you listen to them sing and stuff. You could sit there and it could be like I could fall asleep there. It was always a very peaceful thing. So I like that. I think that is pretty neat.
Definitely.
No,
I got to say the same. I got to say the same thing. I do miss going to a non-denominational. I do miss all the stained glass and all the ornate decorations that were in the Episcopalian Church, which I'm sure in the Catholic Church too. So I do miss that, because that was pretty special. I thought special environment, but yeah, I like the non-denominational way of teaching. So
I always thought my plan is always, in a way, I kind of have started it or do it now, but I always thought as I got smarter, I'm just going to start my own religion and my own church, just really my own church, because it's the greatest tax-free business you can run, right? Churches don't pay taxes, so just say you're following the religion of what I'm doing, and you're at my church, so your donations just come to me, and I don't have to pay taxes on them because it's religion. So it's I would use the corrupted business parts of what religion is to my benefit.
Oh, well, that brings on a whole other topic that we don't have time to get into, but just look up Section 508 of the IRS code.
Section 508?
Section 508. It's what churches should be following instead of Section 501c3. That they get bad advice because then they give away all the rights when they form 501c3. That's what it is. Yeah. 501c3. They give away all the rights, and it's a proven thing. So you file under Section 508, which I happen to have one. You file as a church or a religious organization. You are I don't incorporate. So all I did was get an EIN number from the IRS, and just for banking purposes. That's it. I did not incorporate with the IRS. It's bad. They try to get you. This little pop-up comes up. Hey, you should incorporate. It's a great deal. Yeah, when you do that, you give away all your rights. So that's why you have all this fear from these pastors at the pulpit, afraid to speak their mind on the day's, politics or whatever, abortion, whatever. They're afraid to talk about it because they've given away all the rights, and they're afraid of getting their tax-free taken away. If they're Section 508, they have nothing to worry about. It's like a private membership organization, if you've heard of that before, like a PMA, Private Membership Association. It's the same thing. You do not have to file a nonprofit. So you can absolutely do what you're talking about there. There's there was a church of marijuana or whatever it was. I think it was in like North Carolina or something like that. I'm slaughtering this, but they went through the same process, and they're Section 508. They got nothing to worry about. They're protected under the First Amendment. If you actually look at the IRS code, excuse me, if you actually look at the IRS code for 501c3, it doesn't even mention churches. They're not even mentioned because they're protected under the First Amendment. So
if you create a 508, then you don't even have to file taxes. Is that right, James?
You need to keep records, but no, you have no obligation to file anything.
Nice.
Nothing.
I know what I'm doing after the show.
100%. I wonder how you prove that you are a church. I mean,
you don't have to prove anything. There's several court cases that back all this up, that you don't have to prove anything. You just say you are. There's the church. I think there's the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. I think that's another one. So no, you don't have to prove squat.
Well, we can incorporate, start the Church of Truth, right? And then any donations are just donations to the clergy. Use as you see fit, without having to pay a dime.
You at some point, if somebody, I'm speculating here, but I'm thinking at some point, if somebody kind of rats you out and say, "Hey, this guy's just taking all this money and doing no good with it," they will. I can imagine they could come after you. I'm guessing,
right? At least investigate you. Yeah.
Yeah, investigate you. So you do want to keep records, and you do want to make it a legit organization that is doing some good. So
yeah, which is me and my wife we started the organization. It's called Pause Your Life. We do online meditations and stuff, and we actually about 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago now, we actually wanted to become an official nonprofit so that we could basically, when people donated to us, they would get a tax write-off, right? If we were an official nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
So because it's all about meditation and spirituality. So it was just a nonprofit. But man, after like a year and a half with all the paperwork and I totally blocked it out of my mind. It was nasty. And I literally said, F this, and I undid the 501c3, and I'm like, and I filed all the paperwork to undo everything, and I'm like, F everybody, because this is retarded. And so now we're just nothing.
Yeah, well, I can hook you guys up. I'll show you how to do this.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah, at least the websites of where you can read about it. every single person should have their own organization.
Yeah. And mine's going to be the Church of Psychedelic Martian Cowboys or something.
Absolutely. Whatever you want it to be.
I mean,
Yeehaw.
yippee-ki-yay. Oh, geez. Oh, speaking of yippee-ki-yay, Bruce Willis, I think
You heard
today,
about
right?
that? Yeah.
They announced, he's announced he's not
Retired.
doing well and he's not going to be acting anymore. And yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what is that? That aphasia? Does that mean it says he has a tough time communicating? Like he can't talk,
Yeah.
or
It's his speech and his comprehension. Both are deteriorated. I don't know to what degree, but
is that like a brain tumor, or like a virus, or just some weird degeneration of part of your brain?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't know.
I haven't looked
First
into
time
it
I've ever
yet.
heard of that.
Yeah. Well, we're not biologists, so we don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes. We don't know anything.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I am. I mean, it's,
A Martian cowboy.
yeah. So yeah, I thought so. Anyway, the whole religion with no name into Christianity, fascinating stuff, you know. And really, you know, I don't know. I guess speaking for myself, there have been times in my life when I wanted to experience different things because, you know, the mundane life is what it is. It's fine. We all have to live it. But at some point, there's this idea of exploring, if you want to put it that way, right? And exploring consciousness. Problem is, a lot of people are just so against any drugs or anything. And in my opinion, they're a little too against it. I mean, I know drugs are a tricky thing, and a lot of them are just bad, like the hard drugs, you know, cocaine and heroin and all that. I mean, those are just plain old bad. But like, you know, psychedelics, so at least some of them, and lighter drugs, like they're really not the danger that people say they are. And now I'm not saying they're not a danger either. And I'm not saying anyone should do drugs. I'm not advocating drugs. What I'm saying is it's a method of exploration that could actually be really important to humans, and it's been proven is really important because for the past 15 years at least, they've been studying mushrooms, for instance, and they literally at schools like Harvard and like they've literally been doing testing, very controlled testing, and all the people they have people take the mushrooms and they have an experience. 75% of the people who had this experience said that it was the most important experience of their entire life, or one of the top 5. And they said it profoundly changed them for in a good way. 75% of the people. So my point is, and their point, and a lot of people are talking about it, is like, you know, we live in a world that's just completely woke and retarded. Perhaps nature can help us unblock a couple things. And again, not fix everything. It's not a fix for everything, but it's something that can lead us in a direction of more openness, more love, more compassion, and all that stuff. Right?
Well, they've done studies
crazy?
with they're doing and I forget what it is, ecstasy. What's that called? MDMR or something like that.
Oh, MDMA. Yeah.
MDMA. Yes, thank you. They've done trials with vets with PTSD, and I think like 60 some percent of them had amazing results and had no more incidents of PTSD after using that. So it's powerful stuff. I got a sister-in-law actually that does a lot of that research with universities and so forth. But yeah, man, it's a tool. It's all it is. It's a tool. It's a hell of a lot more useful than alcohol. Alcohol is just trash.
Right.
Psilocybin is a fantastic tool just to get just to get high, well, okay, if you want to, fine. But you know, I would like to do that with a guide. Mm-hmm. I would love to do that with a guide. So I have no desire just to do it to goof off. I want to do it with a purpose. So I don't want to.
I agree. I feel the same way.
Dance with a hippopotamus, you know, in a tutu. That doesn't do anything for me. I want to achieve. I want to have a purpose when I go there and do it.
Yeah, so. It's like do it like a ceremony, and do it for the right reason, for consciousness exploration and spirituality, mm-hmm. and working on yourself.
Yep.
If you do it that way and you have a guide, I mean, come on, man. That's like that. That's got to be so much more effective than just going to the doctor to get some antidepressant drug that's going to screw up your liver and your kidneys for the rest of your life.
Jeez, don't get me started on this.
Oh,
that's a Band-Aid. Doesn't do anything.
Exactly.
You know, for maybe a few people that are really in a bad place, just to get them out of that bad place. But long term is just, it's pointless. It's pointless. Just a Band-Aid. It doesn't solve anything.
Well, everything you're saying now circles back to what you were talking about earlier, Bub, which was self-accountability and self-agency. To experience the benefits of these things, you have to go in with a bit of maturity and plan, and you have to plan to use it to better yourself, right? So showing agency and accountability and self-motivation, which is the same points you were making earlier about everything. That's the downfall, as you were saying, James, of society is individuals, you could say, straying from the importance of self-regulation and self-development, right? And what else were you saying? Something about you have to help yourself become a better person, and if everyone does that, then as a group everything would improve, right? So you see that as like a common thread amongst this entire 47 and 21 second video is having self-agency and self-determination and accountability seems to be a center thread in these variety of topics. That seems to be the one of the most important foundational, aspects of that. How not to fail as a society, how to become better as a society, how to reach higher levels of potential, and then how to access maybe parts of your brain and parts of the universe that you would maybe not be able to. All of them connect to this idea that you have to have some desire and self, oomph, something to push you, and I guess agency really is the word. You have to have the agency to do these things, because otherwise everything, literally from civilization to your own health, will just collapse.
Right.
The centerpiece is self, which is what I wanted to say earlier when you were talking about. I don't know if James, you were saying it about the about government and how they're leading us down, the wrong path, and they're collapsing everything. And it ties right to what you were saying, Bob, about if everyone gets better individually, and then as a group we get better. That's true, but if you have anyone who takes on a leadership position, by the very nature of that, which is what pretty much every civilization has, someone who's a leader, you then sacrifice your power to them. You have to sacrifice some levels of self-agency and self-reliance and give them to whomever you decide for any sort of power structure to exist. You can't have a leader, yet everyone else has all the self-agency and self-reliance. So this is the paradox we find ourselves in. The way to success is self-agency and self-reliance and self-improvement. However, the only way to exist as a group in a society, a civilization, is to elect or determine people who are in charge, who must have, therefore, more power than everyone else. So it's, how do you solve that? That's like an equation that has a variable on each side with no numbers. You're like, what the hell?
Yeah, not easy. But
stay small and tribal. That's the solution to that. I mean, we're 180 degrees away from that, obviously, but small and tribal. That way, government never gets too big.
Right. And Matt, everything you were describing about everything, if you center everything around an individual human and their self and their betterment and the growth of themselves, the evolution of themselves and their characters, what you're describing is the Enlightenment, right? The Western civilization. Like that's literally what Western civilization is all about. It's the value of the individual. It's not like that in the East. It's a different way of life. It's similar, obviously, but it's just different. And so, that's a very interesting points you made.
Reagan said that in one of his speeches he said the reason that America became so successful is because never before in history has the importance of an individual allowed to develop himself and make as much self-progress as possible been unleashed. Here in this country, you allowed that. And it's sure that got America to say the top of the food chain or whatever the case is. But as we're moving away from that now, right? Now it's not about your self-agency and your ability to express yourself independently. And I guess it's individual liberty is what he was saying. Individual liberty and freedom. Letting that just take off. Because in other countries, you can't develop your own technologies. You have to follow the government assigned path or the traditional assigned path, whether it's engineering or science or math or sports or whatever. There's the ability to just kind of branch off to your own thing is not promoted. Here it was tremendously, but we've definitely, I would say, probably stepped off the slope of going in the wrong direction. It's more of a cliff or a black hole that we're going. Yeah. We seem to be going in the opposite direction, which is, like you said, James, stay small. Stay small.
That's right. Have a tribe and start your own religion, which is what I'm going to do after the show. I mean, I don't know what you
Section
guys
508.
I wanted to let everyone know that the book I was telling you about, The Immortality Key, there's a great quote from it. It's actually a Greek saying. If you die before you die, you won't die when you die. I'll say it again. If you die before you die, you won't die when you die. So, and the list of initiates at the Eleusinian Mysteries in ancient Greece, the list of initiates included philosophers Plato, Aristotle, Epictetus, the military leader Alkibiades, the playwrights Euripides and Sophocles, and the poet Pindaros. And another famous initiate, Emperor Marcus Aurelius.
You die before you die?
Yeah. No, if you die before you die, then you won't die when you die. So the idea there is that these psychedelic experiences, they looked at it almost like you're dying because the ego is dying and the whole universe is opening up.
Right. That's part of the trip is dying and then letting go. So I read.
Right. But the point of that quote is when you come back to reality, now that you've experienced that next level, now you're not afraid of death anymore because you've already seen it. Right. That's the key.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Interesting. I like that.
And that's why, even in a lot of families, older members of the family are, when they get up to a certain age, they can start to fear death quite directly, right? Like daily, fearing death, because you don't know what's there. I mean, so for me in my life, meditating for so many years really helped me with that because, when you meditate, you experience things. I'm sure it's not like a psychedelic trip, but it can be. But for me, it was
if you do that holotropic breathing. I'm probably saying that wrong.
Oh, all right. Next episode, let's do that.
Yeah, DMT, holotropic. Yeah. Anyway.
Oh. Anyway,
yeah, it's the same chemical. Anyway.
So I'll link to everything in the show notes, and we end our episodes with media suggestions. So each of us can recommend just a book or something or something we've been interested in over the past week. I'll start. I want to say there's a guy named Ed Sorensen who's a diving instructor, and he does cave diving and all kinds of different diving. And he's done so many rescues in caves. If you search on YouTube for Ed Sorensen. Oh, by the way, I'll put some links in the show notes, but this guy, I mean, he's literally world renowned. Like if anyone gets stuck in any cave diving thing, everyone's like, "Oh, can we get Ed here to help?" And so I've been watching videos of that guy. And first of all, that cave diving stuff is insane. I mean, that's it. I don't have.
Is it like it's like cave exploring, but now you're underwater, so it's even worse.
Oh, yeah.
With a limited oxygen supply. Yes.
Oh yeah. Imagine going hundreds of feet underwater. Imagine going so deep in a cave underwater. By the way, narrow passages and stuff a lot of times. And you go so deep that now you can't just come back up. You got to come up a little, decompress for like 20 minutes, come up a little more, decompress. Like it's
and you
like,
gotta allow for the oxygen to do that too.
Right, you have to save enough in your tank, otherwise
you have to save enough in your tank so you don't have to get the bends on the way up. So,
anyway, I've just been fascinated by watching this guy Ed Sorensen. He's an absolute beast, though, and so the reason I like him, okay, the cave diving stuff, I'm never gonna do it. Okay, I'm not, but I really enjoy listening to him talk because he's so based in like common sense. Like when a good teacher will fascinate you regardless of the subject, right? If the teacher is a good teacher and they're expressing their heart in such a way, you will be. I am mesmerized, and so that's how it is with this guy Ed Sorensen. Like he's a beast.
Yep.
He's awesome, and you're not only learning about cave diving, you're learning other things. I can't quantify what I'm learning, but it's fascinating. I'll put links below. So that's mine.
Practical knowledge that you can relate to.
Yeah. Also attitude. Yeah. Like when he shows up to some rescues, everyone's like, "Okay, so what's your plan?" He's like, "I don't have a plan. I don't know what we're going to, I got to go in there to see what we got. I don't know." And everyone's like, oh, "He doesn't have a plan?" It's like, "Well, what equipment are you going to need?" Not sure yet. And they're like, "I thought you were the expert." He's like, "I got to go in and see every dive is different." So it's so good. It's so cool. I love watching that guy. All right, what about you guys? Who wants to go next?
What do you got, James?
Oh, real quick. Of course, that Jared Diamond book, Collapse, and we'll link the PDF. That's a fascinating read. Very instructive with where we're at, or really where any society is at in history. And great book. Cool. So next movie that I just popped into my head, The Lives of Others. It's a fantastic. Everybody should watch it. It's a German film, actually, and it's set in the time period. It's in East Germany, and it's right before the wall falls, and it follows a East German Stasi agent. And if you want to see what living in a socialist hellhole looks like, watch that movie. Okay. It's a great movie, and it's got some, redemption at the end. But everybody should watch that movie. So
cool. I've heard of that actually.
Yeah, great film.
Cool. I will watch that. What do you got, Matt? By the way, you see, I changed my name to Bub because you kept calling me Bub, and everyone watching is like, "Who's Bub? What?
Who's Bub?
Who the?"
Bub. He's the guy in the shadows behind me. Don't worry about it, okay? It's one of the Martian Cowboys. So I have so many things I have two great books, but I'll save them. Well, I'll use one now because it kind of ties in with your diving. It's a book I've read a couple times and I'm reading it again. It's called Life at the Extremes. I think you may have given it to me. If you didn't, then it's definitely something you would have given me. It's something you would have given me. But it's fantastic because it talks about the science and sort of biology on the human being at the extremes. So at extreme altitude, extreme pressure, like underwater, extreme heat, extreme cold, all sorts of different. And so each chapter is broken into these different, levels. Extreme speed, extremes, height, so in space, all the effects on the body. It's really fantastic. I would recommend anyone because it is not so heavy that you're like, oh my gosh, this is like a college level type book. It's so much technical material. It's really not. It gives you some understanding. It makes a lot of relations, and it's relatively quick to read. It's a very quick read. It has some historical aspects of each extreme, so that's neat. And a great movie to watch because it kind of, James, you reminded me of this. Your movie did. Check out Jojo Rabbit if you haven't seen that yet. You ever see it?
No.
Oh, it's great. It's about this kid, Jojo, and it's during the collapse of the German, the German forces during the end of World War II, and they're living in a German city right as the end of the war is occurring, as Hitler's getting really wrapping up and about to get killed, and he has an imaginary. He's a kid, 10-year-old kid, and he has an imaginary Hitler as his friend. So it's part comedy, but also part I don't know what other genre would fall in, because it's not just a comedy. It's really deep and insightful and kind of weird. Like you're like, wow, like that's awful. Like a bit of not horror, but some horrible type things. Scarlett Johansson's in it as well, so you get some eye candy, which is always a good thing. And so that's definitely, if you feel like that's a cool film, Jojo Rabbit.
Cool.
It'll make you think a little bit.
Cool.
Yeah, you guys got to send me links or put it in the document. So I'll put everything in the show notes. Well, yeah, so this was great. This was a great chat. Thanks, everybody, for watching. If you haven't yet, don't forget to click the little subscribe button or follow or whatever you got there. We're trying to grow our Odyssey channel. We are on YouTube and we are on Rumble as well, but we're trying to grow we're going to promote the Odyssey one because that's probably out of all three of those platforms, that's the coolest platform. So if you want to help share our show, share the Odyssey link, which we'll put that below as well. And anything else before we say goodbye, fellas?
I think we've covered everything. So
everything.
No.
Yeah. I know. Wait until our episodes start becoming like 3 hours like Rogan's.
As soon as you get Viva on, we'll do that. Did you ask him about chess yet?
I did. I actually tweeted at him. I friended him on chess.com. I haven't heard anything. I even asked Eric Hunley. I pinged him on Signal and I was like, Eric, can you do me a favor? Can you ping Viva and just tell him I want to play chess with him? Anyway, I'm not giving up. It's because, it might take several weeks or a month, but
right.
And I've been playing a little more chess, and oh God, am I awful? Oh, absolute rubbish. I mean, just disgusting. I mean, I win some. Don't get me wrong. There's some devastation that happens. It's quite fun, but when you start losing, it's like that's the worst thing ever. Just resign, get it over with.
Done. Moving on.
All right. Well, James, where can people find you, bro?
JamesBreeding.com.
Right. Link is below. Matt, big
Strength and Honor Fitness.locals.com.
There you go. The local. So he's making videos every day for locals now too, right?
We're getting on it. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. Everyone go start lifting weights. Don't do what I did, which is try to plant 2 trees in your front yard and throw around a bazillion bags of dirt and get it and pull your groin, or I don't know what I did, but anyway, maybe we'll. It's actually not that bad, but I'm like like when you almost hurt something bad, like you didn't hurt it bad, but you're like that an inch away, and that's where I am. But
it's like a near-death experience.
Thank God, though, it didn't.
Especially if the groin's involved. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, links to me below are some of my fractal NFTs. And by the way, if you've heard of NFTs and you hear everyone saying that they're a scam, they're not all a scam. Some are ridiculous scams, but the technology of NFTs is one of the most. It's gonna be one of the most cultural changing technologies ever. Just so you know, so NFTs are not bad. Whatever you hear. Of course, there's idiots out there selling stupid stuff, and that's fine. They can do that. More power to them. But NFTs are good, and I make some fractal artwork, and I also teach at Podcast Engineering School. All the links are below. That's it. We're done blathering. Okay. See you next week.
Peace out.
Later.
Bye, guys.